Oh, hello. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Rob Tart. This is my cow Fluffy, and you're watching Pie's Perspective. All right, Fluffy, we gotta go. People are waiting on us. Fluffy? In early December, Arctic blizzards swept across southeast England, causing whiteouts and stranding hundreds of people in their car. It was also an opportunity for people to make snowmen and snow forts. A woman in Richmond Park in southwest London decided to step outside and have a cigarette. That's when she noticed that her snowman was gone. So what did she do? Maybe chalk it up to a prank by some neighborhood kids and leave it at that? No, she called the police to report that her snowman was stolen. And the authorities, of course, were not amused. Now, I'm really not sure what this woman expected the police to do. Send over a police sketch artist so the authorities could identify the snowman? Maybe organize a search party, go house to house and check people's backyards for the stolen goods? You could go door to door questioning neighbors, maybe ask them if they've seen any strange activity, like a couple of kids carrying a snowman. Now what if they actually caught the perpetrators? What would they charge them with? Theft? It's not like the owner of the snowman can really prove that it's their snowman. Now the last time I heard, you can't do a DNA test on a snowman to ensure the snow was from a particular person's lawn. Now if they do manage to locate the snowman, they're going to have to bag it as evidence, which of course would require some sort of a freezer. Then you need some way to transport the evidence to court in a way that would prevent the snowman from melting. This of course assumes that the people who stole the snowman didn't actually take it to a chop shop by now, break the snowman into three and put the parts on other snowmen to hide the evidence, after they rub off the serial numbers, of course. It's also possible that these thieves plan to hold the snowman for ransom. They could threaten to pull out one of its eyes made of coal if they don't get 50 cents in unmarked coins. I think in the end these thieves could end up with multiple charges. Now the obvious one is kidnapping. Then if the snowman melts, they could actually get manslaughter, or I guess in this case, snowman slaughter. Alright, who wants ice cream? We have the thumbs upsicle, the subscribe-sicle, the 3-flavor fave-sicle, and the comment on a stick. Please help yourself to anything you like. A woman with her 2 children, one 8 years old and the other 10 years old, reported to police that a man had exposed himself to her. She informed police that the man had dropped his trousers and then wiggled his hips. Now, police had a suspect, a 55-year-old man named Michael Poley, and they decided to pay him a visit. Police knocked on the door, and when the man answered, he wasn't wearing any underwear or pants. So he essentially looked exactly the way this woman described him, although I'm pretty sure he didn't do the hip wiggle for the cops. Now, the story I read said that the man was arrested after a struggle. I think the last thing a police officer wants is a naked suspect resisting arrest. Given the law of gravity, momentum, and random luck, the possibility that somebody's going to get hit with the man's member is probably pretty high. Now, it wouldn't be too bad if it hit your uniform, because that could be washed or even thrown out in this particular case. But imagine the lifelong therapy that you would need if during the struggle, his silly sea serpent smacked you across the cheek. I guess you could then charge him with assaulting a police officer, although technically it isn't a concealed weapon. I wouldn't be surprised if the officer involved just decided to drop all charges in order to avoid having to give testimony about it in court. And when they get this guy to the station, do they include his member in the mugshot? Or at least photograph it for evidence? You could put a ruler beside it for reference just in case you needed a victim to identify it again. Although I'm not sure how accurate that would be. I was in the pool! I was in the pool! What if they aren't completely sure that the person they have in custody is actually the person who exposed himself? So it might be time to do a police lineup. Have several people line up with their pants down so that the victim could identify the guilty individual. Number 3, could you please step forward? Okay, could you turn around, please? Alright, could you wiggle your hips? That's right, wiggle your hips. Do it like you mean it. Wiggle those hips. Okay, that'll be enough. It'll be interesting to see the looks on the people's faces in the courtroom when the prosecution decides it's time to show Exhibit A to the jury. I actually feel sorry for the person who had to tag the evidence. I imagine in the end this guy will get a dose of his own medicine. I can just picture when he hits the showers in prison and a 400-pound guy named Bubba strolls up naked and wiggles his hips at him. Today's question of the day is, it's just not really a question, name something ridiculous that was stolen from you. Something that you would never have thought anybody would steal. When I was younger I had a CB radio and I had one of those big whip antennas on the back of my car. And somebody came up and cut the wire and just took the antenna. Now you need the rest of the cable and the plug that goes into the lighter for the thing to work, so unless this guy had a spare one lying around, he had a big useless antenna. Moron. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, it's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just my perspective. Alright, Fluffy, can we go now? I'm getting kind of tired. Hya, mule, hya! Hello, Fluffy, hello? Causing whiteouts and stranding hundreds of... It's also possible that the thieves plan to hold the. It's also possible that the thieves plan to hold the snowman. Can you imagine the lifelong therapy you would need if during the struggle the man's silly sea serpent, you could put a ruler beside it for, you could put a ruler. What if they aren't sure that the person they have in What if they aren't sure that the person they have in custody? What if they aren't completely sure that the suspect that they have in custody? What if they aren't completely sure that the suspect that they have in custody? Why do I keep saying custody? I must have a tooth on the brain. When the prosecution decides it's time to show the jeu. When the prosecution decides it's time to show